When a person suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's, they are no longer able to make decisions on their own. So that leaves the responsibility of care, end-of-life care and treatment in the hands of family members and loved ones. Now, how do we decide at the junction where decision has to be made? How do we decide? Most people would actually try to recall back their memory and see what their loved ones had said when they were still alert and the form of treatment that they wanted. But in this video, I just would like to say that sometimes we also have to have a consideration that as a person progresses and develops Alzheimer, they are no longer the same person as they were previously. They may have said that the decision is to not to have any care and to go for palliative when it reaches end stage. But when they actually develop Alzheimer, we need to understand that their mind have already regressed. They are aging backwards and slowly becoming like a baby. They lose part of their personality and characteristics. And I would say that if they do not suffer, they actually want to live. Why do I say that? Now, I will give you an example of a case of my mom. But before my mother had Alzheimer, when her mind was actually her thinking was straight, she has repeatedly told my brother that these words, that if I'm no longer serviceable, I don't want to live. And my brother have excellent memory, so my brother repeated this to me when it comes to the time where we have to make the decision on the course of treatment for her as my mom has now moved on to end-stage Alzheimer, where she had problems swallowing. So is it the decision is to just let nature take its course as what she had meant, or is the decision to put in a feeding tube? Now, in the culture here in Asia and in Thailand, there's a kind of a different approach compared to maybe more advanced countries. Because in the country here, we are very community-based, like in the sense that when you have normally the option for old people is not to go to old folks' home unless there's no choice. What they'll do is that you will have the person being taken care, like there will be housed in a big family. You have the grandchildren, the niece, the nephew, and other siblings that will actually take turns taking care of that person. So, and also it's because of due to costs as well, and they know that no matter how, you won't be able to find, even how you put in a nursing care, you won't be able to get the level of care like how a family member or a loved one would do. You know, when my mom was hospitalized in Thailand, in the government hospital, almost every single bed of the patient, there is a caregiver, a family member that comes to sleep with the patient on the floor, on a mat every night. Even though the condition of the person is not critical, but it's to give that patient moral support and care. So if the patient is hospitalized for 1 week, there will be a person. Sometimes they take turns, different people coming to sleep with the patient until the patient gets discharged. Almost every single bed. they will come and care for their family member who is sick. Therefore, the doctors here automatically suggested tube feeding. Now, if we were to follow what my mom said, then it will be going towards like just let it happen naturally. And my mom herself, I even asked her, because she was a former nurse, so she has a bit of the memory. I did ask her whether she wants tube feeding, whether she wants to go to hospital. She said no. But at that point when she was going like into a semi-comatose state, like she was in and out of consciousness, we sent her to hospital. She was okay in the hospital because there were people, there were noise, there were crowd. So she was okay. And when the nose tube was inserted, she was also okay. Just that she got annoyed, but it was not aggressive. And we just had to restrain her because we can't reason with her to pull out. Automatically, the hospital will suggest that we just restrain because they have restraint available. It's not an ethical issue. It's most important to save the life of the person. And she didn't react negatively towards the restraints. She is actually, in fact, she is trying to be like Houdini style, trying to get the restraint out from her hand and playing with it and trying to step on it to tuck out her hands and things like that. But she was not in any form of distress. And then sometimes we'll move her around and let her have some exercise because we need to make sure she doesn't have bed sores. And she changed. Beginning, she was, when she was not eating well, she was not drinking well, she was severely dehydrated, she had electrolyte imbalance, her BP dropped to the rate that you cannot read anymore. She looked miserable. She looked like her body is very heaty and her mouth is always open, like panting for air. She looked absolutely miserable. She used to sing and hum a lot of songs. You can hear her singing. She liked to sing oldies, one or two tunes that somehow it just got stuck in her mind. And even though the music doesn't follow exactly like the song, but you know that she's singing that song. So she used to sing, but as she got sick, the songs, she stopped singing. And now, when we place her on tube feeding, her energy come back, her vitality come back, she smiled back, she looked happy. It's just that the level of care we have to give her is much more, because we have to monitor her, we have to make sure she doesn't cough, we have to make sure there's no reflux, that she doesn't choke on mucus and all this. Her bed has to be on an incline, she always like to slide down. And we have to take extra care, provide with hygiene. We have to always make sure our room is clean and stuff like that. So there's a lot of caregiving involved, and you will need support. You can't do it alone. But she's happier. Regardless of whether studies show that there is any additional improvement on lifespan and when you put an Alzheimer patient on tube feeding or not, we are talking about quality. Given the same period of time, if the period of time is going to be the same, I would rather that I go with that is harder for the caregiver, it's tougher for me. I have to look after her more, I have to spend more time, effort, I have to be round the clock. But she's happy than to watch her literally dying and wasting away, dying from starvation, dying from the heat built up in the body, from agitation. From looking, it is a very pitiful sight to watch. So this is what I wish to highlight, that even though she has mentioned in the past she don't want to live, we also look at how her characteristic was, what leads a person to develop Alzheimer, because of that it is a very straight way of thinking. It is that they felt like there's a kind of rejection that my mom had felt all her life, and she's like And she also don't want to trouble people, that kind of mentality. But basically, like when she had cancer 20 years ago, I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to look after her. She told me if I were to quit my job, the time she don't have Alzheimer. She told me if I were to quit my job and look after her, she would die faster. So I had to hang on to the job. But she was undergoing radiotherapy and she was so weak. I went to the hospital to visit her. She told me, you don't have to come if you don't have time. But I went because she looked so weak from the radiotherapy 20 years ago, when she was still normal, her brain was normal. She told me I didn't have to go. She told me I didn't have to quit my job. But do you know, when I went and visit her, daily in the hospital after work, I had special arrangement to work from 3 to 12 midnight, and then I go to visit her in the hospital. One night when after visiting her, as I was going out towards my car, I turned and I saw that she was standing in the balcony looking at me. She misses me. She was standing at the balcony in the hospital. I was so happy to be able to when she finished her radiotherapy and she got discharged. Yes, she told me she didn't. You get what I mean? It's the toughness that they try to display, but it's not really what they really mean. So if we know them very well, sometimes my mom tend to say things that it's very tough that she doesn't mean. And I think that there is a similar characteristic of many people who have Alzheimer, a kind of mental toughness. They can survive. They are strong people. Alzheimer disease don't happen to people with weak minds. They happen to people who gone through a lot, who have very strong mind but have maladaptive way of dealing with the problems in their life. A kind of way that no longer serve them, but causes a kind of like a breakdown in their brain. So when I put her on nose feeding, she has the nutrition, she has the energy. She actually didn't poo or urine for so long, but then after I put her on tube feeding, thankfully it's not too late, her function got restored. So there is a consideration that I want you to think about. Of course, if you make the decision to put her on tube feeding, it will be much taxing if you are the caregiver and you can't do it alone. There's also cost involved. You need to make additional purchase, and also their blend of food is different. If you can't get food like what we do, we manage to cater from the hospital. If you can't get, you have to get her like Ethnical or Ensure. And this special formulas for tube feeding, and they don't come cheap. So all these are costs and consideration to be involved. But most important thing for me personally, I notice she's much better. But my point stops at despite even the doctors and my teacher and feel that we should put her on tube feeding, our aim is to make her as comfortable as possible. But there's a DNR, do not resuscitate, which I have signed. Means the point stops at DNR. If she were to go into a cardiac arrest, if her organs were to fail and she slipped into a coma, means we give her the best we could, but eventually if her organs fail and she's already dying, if that happens and her body rejects the nutrition that we are putting in at that stage, then we won't want to put the tubes, or we won't want to put in nitrate and force her heart to beat, because doctors advise that it is tough on her. They can do it. If I don't want to sign the DNR, they will do it, but she will suffer. And the chances of her restoring back to her old self they say, is slim to none at that stage. But prior to that, they will do whatever they can to save her and make her comfortable, but they won't resuscitate. Now, that part I signed, and after discussing with my family members, after discussing with her nurse friends, we agree that not to put her to any more suffering. And she has also told me that one I think is very true, because when she had tonsil cancer, she had a neck operation, she suffered, and then she has a radiotherapy. She have told me that if the cancer reoccur, if she don't want any more invasive treatment, it is very tough on her. She has requested. That I understand. Means no tracheostomy. When she had mucus, we don't put tracheostomy on her to actually suck out the mucus. So we don't actually put the feeding tube in her stomach. We actually run it through the nose. We don't surgically place a feeding tube in her stomach. No invasive treatment, just treatment to make her comfortable. So this is the level that we are currently doing. And I'm not the only person that does it. In fact, there is somebody I know of whose family has actually the person was actually bedridden. The man was bedridden for more than 10 years. He had a stroke, and they actually put tube feeding, and then they actually hire a nurse to take care of him. So this is something that we actually with tube feeding, the person can survive if no infection, no pneumonia. The person can survive for much more longer. The quality of life is also better. But of course, when it comes to an Alzheimer patient, there's a tendency to attempt to pull the tube up, so you have to restrain. That's why I feel that if your loved one who have Alzheimer, if you are placing them in a nursing home, it is difficult to actually get the tendency to get pneumonia is there, because first thing first, you don't have it's normally nursing home, you don't have dedicated staff 1-to-1 24 hours a day. You have one staff taking care of many patients, and nobody have the time to actually attend. I mean, even in the hospital also, I can see the nurses were very good. They care for the patient and all this, but they are also have to deal with many patients. So the level of attention would not really be there. If you can't, if you are not able to provide the kind of care, and if the person is going to be placed in a nursing home, then whether or not to do a tube feeding or not, that would be the decision you will need to make. Because tube feeding also, if it's not being taken care well, it has its own complication, as you are aware of pneumonia and all this. But if you are the one taking care, you can put your life on hold and you take care of them. Then I just want you to know that there is a choice. There is a choice you can make. There's something you can try, because if you let things happen naturally, there's only going to be one outcome. The person is going to waste away, and for sure they're going to die. The organ is going to start breaking down when there's no water, when there's no nutrition. There is only one outcome. But with nose feeding, you can check whether or not how they react to it. Is it a very negative reaction? If the reaction is not very negative, and if you can spare the kind of attention, and you have a bit of financial support, like for me, I can break through my savings. Why not? If you can, at least there's an opportunity to extend their life, even though it's not really extended. When they have enough nutrition, they actually feel much better. I would address the part, some of the complications that beginning we had with the nose feeding, like she has inflammation, she was wheezing, and also mucus built up, which got taken care of by medication. And also you just have to keep her bed on the incline after giving her food. And if let's say the person is prone to having coughing and all this, don't let them lie flat. A lot of pneumonia cases and aspiration pneumonia happens to these Alzheimer patients on tube feeding is because they have been left by themselves in the room, in nursing home. That's why, as I say, if we choose this route, you have to be always, almost constantly there for that person, by the bedside when they cough and everything, because they always, when they sleep, even though you incline the bed, they kind of like slide down, and then you have to, once they're going to be more bed bound, which they already are once they stop eating because they are already weak, right? So you need to take care of things like make sure they don't get bed sore, and then going to do the diapers and do a bed bath, learn to turn them, and then maybe have a safe way of carrying them to the wheelchair and forth when you have to change a bed sheet. So all these things is going to, and sometimes when they cough at night, they are going to wake you up, and you have to attend to them, because there's a danger that because you are restraining them a little, so when they are coughing, sometimes they also lost the swallowing reflex, right? And also gradually losing the cough effect, so they may want to choke on their own. If their phlegm is too thick, you have to monitor, and when things are not right, you have to send to see in the hospital. But then overall, if we monitor and we take care well, then their quality of life is definitely much better, rather than just sleeping there and not eat and hardly eating anything. I mean, if you have gone without sufficient water for even like a day, you know how it feels. It's a horrible feeling. Don't think that a person with Alzheimer don't feel. I can tell you that they feel. I mean, my mom is still capable of feeling fear, anger, and of being afraid when she thought that, and being in pain. They are still able to feel fear. Of course, I'm sure they will feel discomfort. I mean, who goes without eating that doesn't feel uncomfortable? So this is something that needs to be thought of. I try to live. When I see videos that talk about just let them be, I try to leave comment, but sometimes my comments are being deleted. So I thought that it's better I do a video in my own channel, and for you to, if you've come across this video, then you just take a listen to this and see, and then from there you make a decision what you need to do. Because as I mentioned, it is as a caregiver, your life is going to change. You're going to need to give much more care, and you can't do it alone. You can be the main caregiver, but there have to be another person, because you have to lift the person up most of the time. Lifting a person alone is very difficult to lift with the turning the patient and person and all these things. You need help of another person. You can't manage alone. And then how about the food preparation? Unless if you want to use formula like Ensure and Ethnical, as prescribed by the doctor, then it is easy. You just buy and then you just scoop. But how about food for you? If you are always with a person, then you don't really have time to cook for yourself, and because you shouldn't be away from the person for too long. So there is ideally somebody that can provide food for you and take care of some of the house cleaning functions, so that you can focus on looking after your loved one who is having dementia. So this is the consideration. Like, we have to definitely restrain the person with the dementia, but it's not tying down like how you do with prisoner. It's just we will get a special hand mitten that covers the hand and has ventilation, and then from there you tie at the wrist there, so that the fingers cannot move and try to scrape the nose and pull out the tube, and then you tie it lightly to the bed, that's why the hospital bed, they have the railing. You tie it to the railing, and then lightly, not too tight that the person can't move, but not too loose that the thing reaches, that their hand is able to reach their face. Because even though they can't use their finger to pull, through friction they can brush against the tape that is tying down the nose, and then they can dislodge it if it's loose. So you have to restrain the hand away. But if you keep that person distracted and occupied, or the person doesn't have a distress, it is okay. You see, you compare to, maybe some people have the issue with restraint, but here in the hospital here, there is no issue with restraint. As I mentioned, it is in previous video, it is to save the person. There's no issue with the restraining the patient if it's going to save the person. And if the restraining, if the dementia is advanced, sometimes the person don't even know you're restraining the person. But when they get enough nutrition, their body will feel comfortable. If you're talking about human ethics, then which one is worse, to starve the person to death? I mean, to let the person slowly waste away, or to restrain. When a person, you see, in a case where you see a person has cancer, sometimes even 4th stage, late stage, the secondaries has spread, people still go for invasive treatment. They still they still want to try for treatment, even though it hurts them, even though it's painful. So until all hope is 100% lost, then maybe go for palliative care. Then how about a person with Alzheimer who can't make the decision, can't tell us what we feel? What makes us so sure that not eating is what they wanted? It's just like you are telling people who has illness not to go for treatment, to just let the disease take its course. We don't do it to other people who have other illnesses. Then why we want to do it to a person with dementia? When you can see the face of your loved one, it is distress. No matter how you try to tell it, it's distress. And I can say there's a difference between the face of a person who get enough nutrition and the face of a person that is literally dying because the organs there's no fluid going in and bringing oxygen and nutrient to the organs. They're practically dying. There is a difference in their look. There is suffering. No matter how we do it, I think people who say that there's no suffering, they haven't gone through it before, they won't understand. But when you see the face, there is a difference. So this is something I feel very strongly about. You may hear the background, you may hear some voice in the background. That's my mother humming her favorite song again. Last month she really didn't have the energy. She stopped singing, but with the feeding, the energy is coming back, and she's singing to herself like a happy baby. So with this, I end the video. I think it's getting too long already. If there's any other thing, I know it's going to be something controversial, but it is not in Asia, in Southeast Asia. It's not something controversial, because here the value is here parents are not expected to go to nursing home. That when they raise us, the culture, they don't leave home. We are expected to care for them for life. I mean, the culture is a kind of a given thing that we should be caring for them. And people here are ashamed to say that they put their parents. They won't tell people that if they put their parents to nursing home, they won't. Because people would look at them like, oh, why you're so heartless? It's a culture. But I value this culture. So, and I know that some people, they have the kind of, just like me, the love, the gratitude Even though, like my mom, she no longer recognized me for about the past 1 year, she hardly recognized me already, but it's the gratitude that she was there for me at the time when I need her the most. And I couldn't bear to think that if I'm not done my best, I don't think I will ever be able to live with myself if I felt that I have never done my best. I think you may feel that you may put your life on hold, you're caring for the person, which beginning I must confess I did feel it too when she was more independent, a bit independent, and I can have a bit of time off. But when she was in ICU and she nearly died a few times last month, and I felt how it felt to lose her, the kind of regret I have when I look at her, and I knew that she's very important. I mean, things that we work on in life, what are the things? Sometimes we think that there are many things we like, other things we prefer to do, that we work on in our life that is more important than we may feel when we have to take care of somebody, then maybe our life is on hold and all this. But when it comes to when we really nearly lose the person, then we realize what is actually important. What is truly, truly important. I mean, I realize that my mom is very important, and I want to do my best so long as I'm alive to be able to care for her. So that's why I actually go for that, down this road. This is just my sharing, and I hope that again is for your consideration. It's good that for you to know that if you are considering to put her on nose feeding and you can take care of her and she's not your parent and they're not in a nursing home, then there's somebody else who have done it. So at least you know that that it's not everybody is that the acceptable treatment is to just let them starve, because in many parts of the world here, that is not the approach we take. Okay, thank you.